Wow, wow. I think we need to thank them very much. This looks really Nche at 20. Thank you, crane performers. Can I request all the staff, other than the directors, all the staff of National Council to come near where I am? They are very smart. I want to really get to appreciate you. All the staff come this side. All my staff, can I request you to come over here? I expect you to come here in your smart branded shirts and all the staff, and quickly come. We are at KOLOLO, we are not at the National Council grounds. Can I request you to come over? Guys, can you clap for my staff? They are very smart. And we thank you, ED. Wow. You come over here. In the front, I want our guests to... Pierre, oh, you are still taking the photo. Those who have remained are not our staff. ED, you not? No, ED will come later. Wow. Can you clap for them? Now they are going to take a photo. You can see they are smart. These are the people behind higher education for the last 20 years. Can you clap for yourselves, colleagues? Thank you, thank you. Wow. Even Dr. Vincent Sembatia is also here. Wow. Yes. No, he has come as a staff. Yes. Now, yeah. I want to... We are celebrating all of you. And you have done a good work. And on behalf of the council and the ED, National Council does things in a different way. These are our hosts today. And they are all tested, they are all okay. And Maria, you are going to take charge. Can you make sure you usher in our people for breakfast? Thank you. This team take charge this side, but you don't reach there very far because you are part of this tent. You usher from this side and read by Bena, and Mary Innocent will usher that side. Make sure there are no lines. Welcome to our breakfast. And can I ask Uganda prisons? Then after that, we shall come to crane performers. Thank you. The magazine you have got, and shortly, as you start your breakfast, I'll ask the IT team to run the documentary. I'll ask the team to run the documentary.
Check 1 2. Check. Testing 1 2. Okay, right. Check. Testing 1 2. Okay. Check. 1 2. Check. Testing 1 2. Okay. Check. Testing 1 2. Okay. 1 2. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 10. Check 1 2. Check. Testing 1 2. 1 2. 1 2. Check. Are you okay? Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Okay. Yeah. When we set the height, that is all. Some just remove the cover. Run of the height is demanding. One, two, testing 1 2. Check, testing 1 2. 1 2. Check, testing 1 2. All right. Check 1 2. Okay.
National Council. Things changed, and by 1992, the first private university was started in Uganda. This development therefore necessitated the need for guidance and regulation to ensure quality of the education being provided by many institutions of higher learning that were emerging in the country.
The wave of liberalization of higher education had started, actually, it had gained higher heights, and initial steps were being taken to allow universities, private universities, to operate. At the ministry, we had a division headed by Ambassador Chato, which was responsible for higher education. And this is the division we, at the time, entrusted with initial work of doing the initial preparatory work for starting private higher education at university level. Ambassador Chato was assisted at the time by Madame Betty Gabona and a gentleman called Robert Ocheng.
The need for regulation resulted in Parliament passing the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001 as amended, which became effective on 6 April 2001. The enactment of this law followed the establishment of the National Council for Higher Education. The then Minister of Education, Kidu Makubuya, and his predecessor, Professor Apollon Sibambi, the Commissioner for Higher Education, Ayeko Achato, Elizabeth Gabona, and Robert Ocheng were among the strong team that played a pivotal role in ensuring the existence of the Act and establishment of the National Council for Higher Education.
We came to the conclusion that the best thing would be to establish a regulatory body whose sole mission would be to ensure that those concerns about governance, about quality assurance, about accreditation are adequately attended to.
In 2003, the journey of the National Council for Higher Education unfolded from scratch. They shifted their base from the headquarters of the Ministry of Education and Sports and moved to a new location in Chambogo University. Here, they operated in a small container and turned washrooms and boys' quarters into offices. The team, which began the journey with Professor Ebike Kasozi as the executive director, a driver, and office attendant, later expanded to 5.
The first focus was to ensure that a university is worth the name. So everybody now has had to try to meet these benchmarks, to become, to win the license, to win the charter was not a joking matter. And first the focus, there was a bias that you needed first to focus on private universities, which are very good. I think UCU, because we are the first ones to be chartered. But it became clear that it's not only about private. That's why whether you are private, whether you are government, you must have all your programs.
The ministry then appointed Betty Gabona as the Minister Representative of the Council, and that's how we opened the doors to the nascent group at the National Council to operationalize the law when it eventually came into force, to appoint members of council in keeping with the provisions of the Act.
The relocation of the National Council for Higher Education to Chambogo University meant that the mandate of regulating universities and other tertiary institutions was in high gear. However, it was from a humble beginning.
There were no structures. There was an office with no furniture, and there were no staff. It was only me. Then we hired a secretary, and there was no furniture, and I brought my own furniture in to sit on. But later on, I think after 2-3 months, the ministry got informed about my situation, and they bought the furniture, and they permitted me to hire a third person. First I had a secretary, and then a third person who was a treasurer, the current treasurer, I think. And then from there we started.
We saw the National Council being housed. They started in a humble house rented in the university, Chambogo University, paying a minimum maintenance fee. But maybe it's not minimal because the income was also minimal. So as a commissioner, I was representing the sector ministry.
I can assure you it was a big challenge because the money was very little and the government had already its own priorities. But we are lucky, and by then our founder ED, Professor Kasozi, had a lot of connections and networks, and it enabled us to get some funding. We attracted a number of donors. Rockefeller Foundation gave us $250,000 to do a number of projects, state of higher education, tracer studies, and also to run some capacity building and training.
When things got complicated with inadequate space and less funding, avenues had to be devised to identify sources of funding to operationalize the activities of the council.
I must be fair to Professor Abdul Kasozi, because when he came in, he said he had a problem, that nomadic element. You were here today, the other day, and you hosted, and the conditions are not good. So he said, look, why don't we raise... First of all, he wanted land. So I said, we'll give you that land, given that I had started a mission to ensure that all institutions on the Chambogo Hill got title to the pieces of land I thought should go to them, and I ensured they got titles. I ensured that happened. 2, Professor Kasozi then said, we have some money to start building our own headquarters.
The ministry was appreciative of the works, commitment and direction the council was taking, despite operating under harsh conditions. Some of the pioneer staff vividly recall their first encounter at the council.
Virtually, you can say the first 4 staff were Professor Kasozi, were Stella Arera-Rum, were Karimu Subuga, and Soma and me. Those are what we call founder staff. The first payroll was done in April after my arrival, because before they were getting money from the ministry, it was the ministry actually which was paying them, and it's only after that that we were able to open an account, we were able to buy some furniture. They didn't have any furniture at all. The hall was free, was empty, and there was nothing other than the few items which were there. And when we started buying furniture, buying some computers, and that's when we started operations.
Bansangawo nga bazze okunoonya najjanga muzimbi okusooka ekiseera ekyo ne bandekawo abazimbi ne bagenda ne bandekawo mbeere nga nkuumawo kati Professor Abudu basajja bakakawali akasozi najja nga ye executive director w'ekitongole kyo mu biseera ebyo. Kati bwe yajja n'alambula ekizimbe, twali mu Kyambogo omwo University, n'asiima ekizimbe, najja n'ambuuza muvuka tuna obeera wano? Ko nze mbeera wano ssebo, nze nkuumawo. N'aŋŋamba okkiriza okukola naffe? Ko nze mukama wange bw'obanga bw'osiimye nze ŋŋenda kukola nammwe. Kuva ku olwo gwali mwaka gwa 2003 ne tutandika okukola.
The institution that began with 5 members of staff in 2003 was steadily transforming into a formidable institution. By 2004, there was a workforce of 15 staff, a council of 20 members, chaired by Professor Frederick Ian Bantobano, and 5 committees of the council. These included accreditation, research and planning, finance and management, curriculum, and quality assurance.
When we started, we were just a small unit, and we had no departments, no directorates, and we used to operate in all areas, regardless of the position, whether you're in finance, whether you're in audit. You had also to do all quality assurance, and we had to be trained. But as time went on, and we kept on bringing in additional staff, there was a need to do a restructuring, and when a restructuring was done, in the last strategic plan, which ended in 2020, there was an introduction of directorates, there was introduction of departments and units. And we were able to get 3 directorates. That is the Directorate of Finance, Planning and Administration, a Directorate of ICT, Research and Innovation, and the Directorate of Quality Assurance and Accreditation. Then we had, that's when now the position of directors were actually introduced.
We didn't know the exact number of institutions, and we didn't know where to start from. But eventually we know information is power, and having a data-driven planning and decision-making is very powerful. So the first thing that National Council for Education did that year in 2004 was to collect baseline statistics to establish the institutions that were in existence and their status.
Filled with zeal to implement the mandate, National Council for Higher Education started with institutions that had been licensed by the Ministry of Education and Sports, and they were moved under the Council for Regulation and Guidance. Whereas this was a welcome move by some institutions, others cast doubt.
The challenge then was that the people who were to attract, many of them did not know what the council was about. Because as you know, this council came about as the result of the 2001 and amended University and Tertiary Institutions Act. And it was really a maiden activity. And it was more or less guesswork. But there were just a few who really understood what education was all about.
The private universities, first of all, looked at National Council for Higher Education as coming to regulate them. That was really the feeling. And the reason was very simple, because at that time, public universities that were in existence were not like sort of inspected over, putting a lot of requirements about their compliance and regulation, because it was assumed and perceived that because they are public universities, so they can't make mistakes. This was really the theory. So the few private universities that were there looked at the National Council, first of all, as a tough regulator.
Equipped with necessary tools to regulate the institutions of higher learning that were mushrooming, the Council was determined to build a reputable image of higher education which would be acknowledged globally.
Regulation of higher education had become very challenging, and you know, when education is being offered and you don't know to what extent the quality has been managed, you know that even acceptability of our graduates abroad was not sound.
However, with time, the public steadily embraced the establishment of the National Council of Higher Education and its mandate as stipulated in the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001. As work progressed at the Council, benchmarks were developed. They were later legalized by the government as statutory instruments.
We took international standards for the various programs and designed them with the people in the field. And designed, okay, so we take, for example, environmental studies or physics or mathematics. You call in people who know, and you say, if you were to give a degree in mathematics, what are the minimum areas of study student must cover before you give a degree in mathematics? And so we wrote those standards. All right, if for physical, we noted how much area does a student need to sit in a classroom, a library, a laboratory. What is the ratio of computers to students, or books to students, of staff to students, or physical area to students? We looked at all these, and then we designed the benchmarks. And these benchmarks are still there.
Part of the benchmarks was for the Ministry of Education and Sports to source for funds through the national budget to facilitate the operations of the regulatory institution to be effective. A committee was formed for this task.
And also what we had to do as the ministry was to draw a budget, defend it before Parliament, and secure the funds that were available at the time. So initially it was a budgetary process, and at PS level all you needed to do was to ensure that you ensure that the medium-term expenditure framework provides for National Council.
Even at the time, the working conditions at the regulatory institution were not favorable. Nonetheless, it was business as usual to ensure that activities of the Council were implemented in accordance with the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001 as amended.
And my first assignment was to provide a report This project was supported by Rockefeller Foundation, and when this data eventually were analyzed, we were confined in a go-down for about, that is one of the things that I keep remembering, how we were kept in a go-down for about 3 months. Of course, we were breaking in the evenings, but every day we would go and work in the go-down to make sure we had no interference. We were housed within the ED's office, ED's house, because we had limited office space. I was working with about 5 people. So eventually, we produced the first analytical report, and with the aid, we were supported by, guided by Dr. Justus Mugaja. May his soul rest in peace, is the late. And under the guided supervision of Professor A.B.K. Kasozi, the founding executive director.
National Council for Higher Education, through the Accreditation and Quality Assurance Committee, inspected universities which had applied to be granted a charter. Uganda Christian University, Nkumba University and Uganda Matters University were listed. Luckily, Uganda Christian University was the first to be issued a charter.
It had to go through 2 ministers, the charter. It had to go through the Minister of Education, and it also had to go through the Attorney General, obviously, because this is a law.
In May 20th, 2004, President Yoweri Museveni issued Uganda Christian University the first charter amidst excitement. But still, universities needed to be sensitized more about the significance of acquiring a charter.
First of all, we had to explain that what a charter does is that it sets the standard, the quality of the education of that institution. It accredits its program. Well, at that particular time, it was mostly the institution, such that whatever they teach will be acceptable elsewhere.
Thereafter, a few more universities were granted a charter, and over the years, provisional licenses were issued to the increasing institutions of higher learning in respect to the inspection reports. But some institutions, such as Namasagali University, had their licenses revoked. Since 2001, Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act has been amended by Parliament and signed by the President twice in 2003 and 2006. This legislation was to strengthen the Council's role to ensure institutions of higher learning offered quality education. However, this was not attained on a silver platter.
The Council didn't have enough staff for quite a period of time. Themselves as the National Council, to go to yours, to go to his, to go to hers, to go to Mbarara, to go to Gulu, to go to Mbale, and so on and so forth. That was a big challenge on the side of the Council in terms of staff. Even when you are ready to be supervised or to come, to call in National Council to come and see your institution, it could take time because they didn't have enough staff. You are ready, he's ready, she's ready, and that kind of thing.
In 2013, the tenure of Professor Abdul B.K. Kasozi as the founding executive director ended. Although he steered the National Council for Higher Education to greater heights and remarkable achievements, he faced some challenges.
I think the problem that we had was people to understand, universities to understand that we are partners rather than lawgivers. We were partners because it is important that they give good education. For example, I had problems with one university which graduated 65 PhDs at a go. Now, at the moment they thought we were wrong in the querying, but at the same time they realized, and the students realized, that those students who have graduated and are not qualified would not operate properly in society.
In 2013, the Minister of Education and Sports appointed Professor John Opuda as the new Executive Director of National Council for Higher Education. This new appointment followed a recommendation by the Council. The Council also received the new chairperson, Professor Jakpen Mogi Nyeko. Opuda promised to uplift the standards of the Council and tertiary institutions across the country. He maintained some of the policies and practices his predecessor had developed at the regulatory body in the interest of the institution. In 2016, the Executive Director spearheaded the construction of a new home for National Council. The groundbreaking of this new building was led by the Vice President, Edward Chiwanuka Sekandi. Only a year later, the Vice President commissioned the opening of the new structure. The occasion was witnessed by various scholars and government officials.
Because otherwise we used to be in a tents. It was almost unbelievable that the council, which is in charge of higher education, was housed in a very bad situation. But I thank my predecessor, Professor Kasosi, who had identified the site, had procured it, and for me, my job was to execute it, get it done. And I did it within 1 year.
I saw this home get built, and it was necessary because it was a bit of a contradiction to be within an institution that you monitor and you're the tenant. There are likely to be some disagreements with your landlord, so it wasn't quite working out. So I saw the growth of the Secretariat where we are seated today, and it was an exciting time.
The exciting moments of the achievements is partly because the proponents of the University and Other Tertiary Institutions Act had lobbied the government to support the regulatory body by passing the statutory instruments.
In 2006, there was an amendment of the Act. And the amendment of the Act required that all universities and other higher education institutions must bring programs for accreditation. And as a result, it was very costly to accredit a program. We started with what we call blanket accreditation. You just accredit as it is, then we extended. But later on, we reached an agreement with government that students could also pay. And that's the origin of the 20,000. And the 20,000 was supposed to come in to increase on the funding of National Council.
And I was so glad to see during my time on National Council, government responding by levying something small from students on an annual basis to help council run its affairs.
During the course of business, while implementing the mandate, the regulatory body under Professor Opuda and the council chairperson, Professor Pen Mogi Nyeko, established many public and private universities and tertiary institutions. This meant there was an increase in access to higher education.
And then the National Council also was pushing through the ministry to establish the Student Loan Board, which again improves access to higher education. And I used to be a member of the loan board for a long time. As one of the founding members, and I served until I left the National Council. So there are so many achievements the council made. Most of it was to enhance access, improve relevance of education systems, harmonizing curricula, ensuring that university graduates are comparable, whether they are from a private university or a public university, they are comparable. And then ensuring that they are comparable to graduates from other East African countries and other African countries, and then internationally.
National Council for Higher Education engaged universities and tertiary institutions at various fronts, as stipulated in its mission to regulate higher education through setting standards to ensure provision of relevant quality education in Uganda. This was done through strengthening the different directorates of the Council.
We set up the directorate, and as a first director, and certainly we built on the work of those who had gone before us, the founding father of National Council for Higher Education, that's Professor Kasozi, and those who had worked with him, Michel Lejeune, Professor Michel Lejeune, Ambassador Chateau, those with the education sector would be well aware of all their contributions which started this. But certainly a lot of work has happened since in the last 10 or so years, and we're looking forward to further growth of the National Council.
The government entrusted this regulatory institution to ensure that all areas of studies at universities and tertiary institutions are tailored towards the national development agenda. It's why industrialists and manufacturers are represented on the council.
Manufacturers and industrialists in the country are the biggest beneficiaries of the council. They regulate you as a student, they accurate the program you are going to take as a student, fine. You go to school, you go to university, you go to higher institution of learning, and you get a degree. Why are you getting the degree in the first place? Whose degree are you getting? What is it going to help? We've got to realize, and I think it's a fact, that the industrialists in this country, the manufacturers in this country, engage the graduates second to government.
Between 2002 and 2018, 2 executive directors had served at the Secretariat. Professor Ebike Kasozi, the pioneer, and his predecessor, Professor Opuda Asibo John. Even when they attained success like harmonizing the curricula and having Ugandan graduates comparable to those from African universities and global standards, challenges were inevitable.
The other difficulty was compliance. That many people would want to have institutions run by themselves and not necessarily meet the minimum requirements of the National Council, which would be the minimum requirements to ensure that the correct indicators are in place to operate a university, to govern a university, infrastructure in the university. The biggest problem we had was that many people wanted universities for prestige and not necessarily for good quality. And that means some universities were no better than secondary schools.
an item that will take only 5 minutes and less.
Okay.
Then secondly, I had told him that when Mzee is inspecting there, we expect explanations. So no music going on this way, maybe like the MC if is
only okay. Okay. We continue to receive and welcome our guests, and I can tell you that in a matter of time, our chief guest will be arriving soon. On behalf of the chairman of the National Council for Education, Professor Eric Atungaro Wachai, whom I request to wave to the people and welcome you. Yeah, welcome Professor, who is also Vice Chancellor of Chambogo University. Can I also take this opportunity, I know Chairman will be able to do it, to request the council members, current council members, to stand and welcome, be welcomed our guests. Or the council members, I know the chairman will introduce you in your respective capacity. Council members led by the Vice Chair, Professor Joy Kwesiga. Wave to our people. Almost welcome. Can I take this honor and also recognize the former council members? And allow me, I know it will be done later, to welcome Professor Frederick Kayanja, the first chairperson of the National Council. Professor, you are welcome. And we thank you for the contribution, and we cannot talk about transformation of higher education without mentioning your name and the National Council. We want to welcome the second chairperson of the National Council, Professor Pen Moji, is also seated there. Professor Pen Moji, you are most welcome. Can I also welcome former council members, those who are already here, former council members who served National Council from 2003. I can see Professor Mpeza Mhigo, I see Elizabeth Gabona, I see, you are all welcome, and at the right time. And can I request at this moment, PS, ED, Chairperson of the Council, and Ministers, Ogwang and Minister Wakaf to go and maybe receive our guests as we prepare. We shall be able to run this program shortly, and when our chief guest arrives, you'll be able to do the inspection of the stores, and the receiving team will go with him, and we expect people on the stores to do the explanations. And at that time, we want to give maximum attention so that we are able to listen to explanation that will be going on in the store. And I request Tito to come over so that we are able to move on. And we shall have speeches, not many speeches, and also we shall have recognitions of the number of people who served the National Council, and the staff, the pioneer staff. The other side, yes. And we shall be able to recognize a number of staff. Can I request the former staff, the pioneer staff? I can see Abdul Kalim Subuga. Can you stand up and you wave to the people, Abdul Kalim Subuga? And I think I can also Soma Emmanuel. You had seen him on the, we thank you, those people have served the 20 years. Actually, it is their birthday today. I think even myself, you should clap for them. And can I request all the former staff who served the National Council? I know they will be recognized, including Director Pamela Tibichira, there is Professor Changa, there is Okai George, there is Nono Water this side, there is Dr. Francis Otto. I think it's quite a number. I saw Rosette Campi. I saw a number of them. I saw Dr. Robert Ngovi. I see Professor Moses Gorora. Wow, it's quite a contribution. And then we shall, our guests, it's a celebration. And I can assure you that after all this is done, there is going to be a sumptuous lunch. in case you delayed for breakfast, you'll compensate. But I know the lunch is beautiful, well organized, and well done. We still emphasize for this side, the washrooms are that side, upper side, and for this side, the washrooms are this side. Feel free to do them. I want to ask crime performers are just on. Uganda prisons you can give us as we wait our arrival of the chief guest. I want to recognize former ministers who are here, and you cannot talk of higher education in this country without mentioning Honorable Amanyam Shega and the work he's doing currently. You cannot forget Honorable Victoria Sechiteriko. Welcome you. You cannot talk and you forget about PS FX Rubanga. I see a member of parliament, Coeteria. You're also welcome. I know the contribution you have made in higher education. Welcome. And I see a Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, Professor Nawangwe Barnabas. You cannot talk about transformation of higher education. Sometimes people think higher education is Makerere, but this time I think the trend has changed, but you cannot really ignore that fact. It's a fact. And when we do some inspections, people ask you, but Makerere, they do that, but we do it like that, like that, like that, and I think, Professor, we thank you for the contribution. In particular, I want to welcome Mr. Fene Birungi and Ambassador Yeko Achato. Yes. Yeko Achato was a former commissioner and also former assistant executive director, and Fene Birungi. And we thank God who has kept you. We do not take it for granted. A bigger round of applause. I see this side, I see Mr. Wanyama, Loans Board. I know you are doing a great work, and we hope the 13 billion we got yesterday will be able to do it. And I see the Vice Chancellor of Avas. I see a number of people. And we want to welcome International Council. We do not take it for granted that you spared your day to come and join us. And 20 years, as you saw the documentary, as you saw in the magazine, it has been a journey of ups and downs. But now, National Council is mature, it has rebranded, and it's ready to serve and transform higher education, not only in access, but quality, and to make sure that the gross enrollment ratio, hope, before you leave, you should be able to go and see the innovations. There's a lot of work being done in our universities. There's a lot of work being, that's the work of higher education. I can see through digitalization. There are a lot of achievements under ODEL. ODEL is open distance education learning. And not to be outdone, the National Council also has a store, has a desk. Because as we set minimum standards for courses of study, we also do some publications, we also do some research, so that we are able to guide institutions, so that we are able to set example under the leadership of Professor Mero Kokol, who has actually done a lot. We have rebranded. We have celebrated 20 years at KOLOLO. We have invited you, and you have come and you have participated. I want to thank all of you for coming. We do not take your coming for granted. And, we thank those that wish National Council well. I want to thank you, the media, for broadcasting this event live, for the rest of the Ugandans to know what is taking place. We do not take it for granted. And most of them are products of higher education. As you recall, and you'll be able to hear, when National Council started around on a few institutions, but now we have almost 255, with about 55 universities, with about 10 public universities, and about 11 chartered private universities. We still have a long way to go, but it's worth achievements. The students were around 80,000, and I can tell you now, students in higher education, about 270. The number of PhDs have also gone up. Who could have done much better than that? But we want to thank the government, we want to thank His Excellency the President, and for the support of the National Council. And I can see a lot of innovations taking place. A lot of innovations done by own universities in Uganda. These are not universities from out of the country. This main exhibition, but is very brilliant and good ideas. Makerere University started in 1922, just celebrated 100 years. Now you can imagine 100 years, and it's part of the story of higher education. You cannot talk about it without it. I see Professor Okokoro explaining and getting the feedback from universities. I can assure you that our universities earn some foreign exchange by attracting students from the region, from out of the country, and we want to thank those universities that attract students from the international community. And for East Africa community, the fees have been harmonized. That you pay the same fees, and our fees are affordable. Our Ugandan universities' fees are affordable. Whether it's connected with funding, but our fees are united. We thank the government for the loan scheme, which goes both to public and private chartered universities. We don't take it for granted. That's a support to students, especially those students in those critical subjects that are for national development. And National Council, as I earlier said, started in 2003 and has been transformed over a period of time. We started with the 5 staff, as said earlier. We now have over 56 staff, and we're still growing strong. We're still growing strong. Still growing strong. His Excellency President is almost coming to finalizing the straw. Is talking to Dr. Musimami now, and National Council for Education. I can imagine George Ebine is around there, and Dr. Olive Udinyolo, the Master. Yes. Wow. Musimami has got a nod from the president. He may land some appointment. Thank you for presenting us. And that item is from University of East Africa. I can imagine that's a motorcycle, and I think it will save the country a lot of foreign exchange that we spend getting fuel, but then we have our own fuel. What shall we do? Maybe we shall be exporting it. We welcome you. Welcome. Yeah, thank you, CREM performers. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and Honorable Minister of Education, Mama Janet Museveni, you are welcome to National Council 20 years celebration. Can we all stand up for the anthems? Thank you. Can I request Reverend Father Alex Kamanzi from St. Mary's National Seminary to come and lead the prayer. We are praying a nation, and standing a bit, even His Excellency, I can see him standing. It's okay. Father.
We are gathered here in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. We humbly pray to you, most merciful Lord, for National Council of Higher Education. We thank you, Lord, as we gather here for the gift of life, for the opportunity to meet, to share in the joy of National Council of Higher Education, as to make a grand celebration of existence for 20 years. We thank you for the work of the council members, its management, and all the stakeholders, past and present. We dedicate the programs of the celebrations today before you, O Lord. Bless each one of us present. Bless all the organizers of the celebration program, the choirs, the MCs of the day. Bless the speakers of the day, O Lord, the executive director, the chairperson of the council, the Minister of State for Higher Education, and above all, our chief guest, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and the First Lady, the Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Nche Kataha Museveni. We thank you, O Lord, for their dedication and service for the Ugandan nation. We pray for their continued well-being. Lord, we humbly and grateful ask for today's celebrations as the National Council of Higher Education celebrates its 20 years journey of existence, and what you have done in the life of each one of us here present. We pray that you bless our time together as we celebrate the 20 years of National Council of Higher Education's existence. We ask thee through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And the Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remain in the peace of Christ.
I think Reverend Father deserves a bigger crowd. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, our beloved Mama, the First Lady, and the Minister of Education, Honorable Nche Museveni, guests gathered here have been waiting, anxious, and happy to meet you. We thank you for coming. Gathered here, we have ambassadors, we have ministers, we have the council members present and those former. We have the current staff, we have the former staff. Your Excellency, we have a number of personalities who will be introduced later who have made a contribution in higher education. The celebration we are doing today, I know my executive director is soon coming to welcome you. We are launched on 9th of March 2022 by none other than our minister, the First Lady, and Mama Janet Museveni. Your Excellency, on behalf of the organizing committee, we thank her. We thank her. I know my ED will do, Professor Kokor will do much better, but would not take Mama for granted, especially in higher education, especially National Council. The journey of 20 years, she has made a tremendous mark. We don't want to mention a lot because other people may request Your Excellency, they take her to other ministries. We still want her in education, especially higher education, because she's doing a great work. At this moment, allow me to invite the lady that has transformed higher education in this country. The lady we are proud of, Professor May J. Enokwako. And we thank you, Honorable Minister, for appointing, on the recommendation of Council, this great lady. She loves with passion, she works with passion, and when she talks of higher education, you feel you want to be higher education yourself. Over to you, Professor.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Ministers present, Honorable Members of Parliament, Heads of foreign embassies and missions, religious leaders, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, Permanent Secretaries present, the Chairperson and members of Council of Nche, Heads of Government Departments and Agencies present, Vice Chancellors and Principals of Higher Education Institutions, Senior Staff of the Ministry of Education and Sports, Staff of the National Council for Higher Education, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to today's historical event of the grand celebrations marking the 20th anniversary of the National Council for Higher Education. I would like in a special way, a very special way, to welcome Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and Mama Janet Museveni, who is also our minister. You are most welcome. We highly appreciate your accepting our invitation and finding time to join us in the celebrations of today amidst your very busy schedule. I also welcome the honorable ministers present and all of you distinguished guests in your respective capacities. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Your Excellency, the National Council for Higher Education was established by an Act of Parliament, the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as amended in 2003 and 2006. And this act mandated the Council to regulate and guide the establishment and management of higher education institutions, as well as equate qualifications and advise government on higher education matters. It started operations in January 2003, and today we are celebrating 20 years of serving in the higher education space. Allow me to acknowledge the presence of my predecessor, the former Executive Director, Professor John Opuda Asibo, who has come with his dear wife. Let me also recognize the former staff who are present and request them to stand up for recognition. The pioneer executive director, Professor Abudu Kasozi, is currently out of the country, but he is represented by his daughter, Susan Namatovu, and I request her also to stand for Professor Kasozi. The contribution of the former employees did a lot to establish and anchor National Council for Higher Education in this country, and their contribution is very much appreciated. For this contribution laid a good foundation for what the National Council for Higher Education is today. Your Excellency, the climax of the celebrations which you are officiating today were launched by the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, on the 9th of March of this year. And on the same day, our new logo and brand identity were launched. The launch was followed by other activities which included a public lecture. The public lecture was delivered by the Executive Director of the National Planning Authority, Dr. Joseph Muvawala, on the subject of financing and investment in the higher education subsector. It was held on the 11th of July this year. This was followed by what we termed the Nche Run, and this was held under the theme protecting the environment in higher education institutions through proper e-waste management. It was held on the 20th of August, and the chief guest was the Prime Minister of Uganda, Right Honorable Robin Anabanja. Your Excellency, as we celebrate 20 years of operation under the theme 20 years of Nche transforming higher education in Uganda, permit me to highlight some of the key achievements. I will start with the establishment of the Secretariat. At the beginning of operations, there were 4 pioneer staff, and these will be introduced at an appropriate time. From 4 staff, we now have an establishment of 56. I'm pleased to report that Nche is one of those agencies that recruit highly qualified staff. We are happy also to report that employee turnover is low, as the majority of the staff have been in employment of Nche for more than 12 years. We carried out a restructuring exercise as per our strategic plan of 2020-2021 to 2024-2025, and realigned staff into directorates, departments, and units. This has eased supervision and enabled us deliver our mandate better. In this structure, we also introduced the Gender and Equity Unit to facilitate regulation and guidance of institutions in mainstreaming gender and equity issues in their work. The second achievement is acquisition of a home. The first staff operated from the Ministry of Education and Sports, but Nche later on moved to a rented house in Chambogo University. I'm pleased to report that after 13 years of renting, Nche managed to complete construction of the annex to the planned main building and moved there in 2016. And here let me record our appreciation to my predecessors, Professor Kasozi, who secured the land, and Professor Opuda, who saw to it that the construction is done and completed well. The process of constructing the main office block has started with the development of architectural designs. The third achievement is development of a quality assurance framework. We put in place a higher education quality assurance framework for universities and other tertiary institutions. The relevant instruments and regulations are used by Nche to guide and monitor the performance of institutions. But institutions also use them for self-assessment. We have standards, we have guidelines, and we have capacity indicators against which quality of institutions and of programs is assessed. These have been set. The fourth achievement is increasing access to higher education. In the year 2003, when the council started its operations, there were 4 public universities. These were Makerere, Mbarara, Gulu, and Chambogo. There were 7 private universities and 56 other tertiary institutions. I'm pleased to report, Your Excellency, that 20 years later, National Council for Higher Education has accredited a total of 265 higher education institutions. And these are located in different parts of the country. They include 10 public universities, 1 university with a separate act, that is the Islamic University in Uganda, 47 private universities, 24 other degree awarding institutions, and 183 other tertiary institutions. This increase in the number of institutions has enabled more eligible students access higher education. The 5th is increase in the student enrollment. In the year 2003, the student enrollment in higher education institutions was about 80,000, and the number now is over 270,000 students in higher education institutions. The 6th achievement is the increase in academic and professional programs. When National Council started its work, there were about 500 programs being offered in institutions. Today, Nche has accredited over 500 academic and professional programs, and 37% of these programs science-based. The 63% arts and humanities. The 7th achievement is dissemination of information. The Act requires Nche to collect and disseminate information on higher education for the benefit of the public. We have done this through higher education exhibitions. Your Excellency, today we put on a mini exhibition to show you a little bit of what the institutions showcase at the major exhibitions. We also disseminate information through conferences. So far, we have held 13 annual higher education exhibitions and 4 annual higher education conferences. Information is also disseminated using our website. The 8th achievement is visibility of Nche. The visibility of Nche has been enhanced. The public used to know Nche mostly during election periods. Nche has now repositioned itself within the education subsector and is very visible. The 9th achievement is advising the government on matters of higher education. Section 5, C and P require National Council for Higher Education to advise the minister and government on matters pertaining to higher education. In this regard, Nche has played a pivotal role in advising the government to establish public higher education institutions. After we have completed our appointment, our assessment of the fitness of purpose of institutions, we then recommend to the Honourable Minister to proceed with the process of establishing a public institution. The number of public universities, for instance, increased from the 4 that the Council found on the ground to 10. In addition, Nche proposed, as advised to government, Nche proposed the establishment of the Higher Education Students Financing Body, and that resulted into the creation of the present-day Higher Education Students Financing Board, which has supported a lot of disadvantaged students who would not have achieved higher education. We have also advised on having policies on gender as well as sexual harassment. These are among those areas where National Council has advised. The 10th achievement is promotion of research and innovation. Nche publishes the Uganda Higher Education Review Journal, where academicians and other researchers publish peer-reviewed and current research on higher education. The journal was relaunched in March of 2020 after 8 years of dormancy, and so far 11 issues have been published. The 11th achievement is monitoring and guidance of institutions. Nche has continued to regularly monitor institutions as per Section 5G of the Act, and in this respect, we have been able to guide institutions to move from one level to another. Especially private institutions start at the level of obtaining a letter of interim authority, which authorizes them to start preparing to start a university. And when they are ready to apply, to start a university, they apply for a provisional license. The letter of interim authority is held for a maximum of 3 years. But universities can, if they are ready before that, they can apply to go to the next level. And the institutions that are provisionally licensed may proceed to grant of a charter if they satisfy the requirements. That's what I meant by saying we support them to move from one level to another. And through the guidance, the quality of many institutions has improved. Also, as a result of this monitoring, non-compliant institutions have been identified and some have had their licenses revoked. The 12th achievement, Your Excellency, is digitalization of higher education in the country. The number of activities or number of programs that we have used to do this. The first one is the institution of the Integrated Management Information System, IMIS. We are very grateful to the Ministry of Education and Sports that through the African Development Bank funded project, the Higher Education, Science and Technology project, National Council for Higher Education was able to institute the Integrated Management Information System, IMIS. As a result, the Council has digitalized all its operations. Higher education institutions are now able to submit applications online. They can also track their applications to check on the status and progress through the available digital services, such as equating qualifications, program accreditation, and institutional licensing. This IMIS has transformed the way Nche delivers services to the public. The IMIS has also enabled Nche to have a robust data center, and the system is in addition used to disseminate information. Another platform which has contributed to digitalization of higher education is the Nche URA payment platform. In collaboration with the URA, Nche has established the Nche URA payment integrated platform. This will enable Nche boost its non-taxable revenue, NTR, collection by URA. Our stakeholders will be able to pay to URA all the Nche collections at the comfort of their homes through different payment modes. Under digitalization, we are also implementing the open distance and electronic learning system, that is ODEL. In May 2020, Nche developed and issued guidelines for the emergency ODEL mode of delivery. And this was to ensure continuity of teaching and learning during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. However, post-COVID period, institutions are now required to develop programs in conformity with minimum standards for ODEL that had been issued in August 2019, prior to the advent of the pandemic. A number of institutions have developed such programs. Some institutions have got accredited to run full ODEL as a mode of delivery of their programs. The fourth platform for digitalization has been the development of a virtual higher education platform. In 2021, Nche developed the virtual higher education platform, and this enabled higher education institutions to exhibit and showcase their innovations and research technologies during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. Your Excellency, the lockdown came on the eve of our annual exhibition. Some institutions had already traveled with their exhibits to Kampala, and thereafter we are stuck because there was no way the exhibitions could be held. So that time we had to cancel, and along the way we thought of ways of continuing to do that even during the lockdown or lockdowns. The stakeholders accessed the platform anytime and interacted with the institutions or exhibitors within the e-booths via chat, Zoom, and other communication channels. And this was the first ever virtual higher education exhibition in Uganda. It was also possible to use e-platforms to hold virtual conferences. The 13th achievement are the survey reports on higher education in Uganda. Your Excellency, you've seen some of them. The National Council for Higher Education has continued to carry out surveys on higher education in Uganda. The recommendations from these surveys have been used by government to formulate policies and guidelines on higher education, and such policies or programs is the digital agenda of the Ministry of Education and Sports. National Council for Higher Education participated actively in that, in the development of the agenda. The council was represented by our Director of ICT Research and Innovation, Dr. Nora Mulira. If she could stand up for recognition. Wherever she is. The findings of the surveys are published in annual reports, and such reports include the state of higher education in Uganda. This is published annually. We also have tracer study reports on various programs. There have also been reports following surveys on the levels of PhD outputs in institutions, as well as on the state of implementation of STEM and STAY in Uganda. The 14th achievement has been recognition and equating of qualifications. Section 5K of the Act mandates Nche to equate all academic and professional qualifications obtained from elsewhere to determine their equivalence to those awarded by Ugandan institutions. In addition to this function, under the electoral laws of Uganda, Nche was given another function of issuing certificates of equivalence to persons aspiring for political positions, as defined in the Presidential Elections Act 2005, the Parliamentary Elections Act 2005, and the Local Government Act. We have so far handled 4 elections, or rather election cycles, that is of 2006, 2011, 2011, 2016, and 2021. Your Excellency, we are waiting for 2026. The 15th achievement is acquisition of a vote status. For a long time, the National Council for Higher Education was under subvention, but Nche was granted a vote starting with the financial year 2021-2022. This has led to raising of the budget slightly from what we used to receive while still under subvention. So those are some what I call key achievements. I'll also move to areas that require intervention of government. Your Excellency, despite the achievements registered over the 20 years as highlighted, Nche uses to highlight some of the areas that require government intervention. One of them is the need to control admissions into higher education institutions through the establishment of a central admissions system. Such a system was provided for in NDP 3. So what is required is its implementation. The second area is low levels of research outputs in institutions, majorly due to limited funding. This situation necessitates establishment of a National Research and Innovation Fund, which was also provided for in NDP 3 but has not been implemented. The third area is the low level of PhD outputs in institutions compared to the high demand. And this requires establishment of a national PhD training program. Your Excellency, as we talk about the past, on such a day we need to talk about the future. Permit me to highlight key planned activities, some key planned activities. In the current strategic planning cycle and beyond, Nche has positioned ICT as a mandatory strategic tool for regulation, teaching, learning, and research. We aim to promote ICT in all functions of Nche as well as the higher education institutions. The second future activity is that we shall continue, as per the policy of government, to prioritize STEM and stay in program and institution accreditation so as to reduce and eventually eliminate the balance. Because as you may recall, I mentioned that 37% of programs are science-based and the rest are arts and humanities. The third activity is to review the instruments and regulations to incorporate current developments and trends and further strengthen the quality assurance function of the Council. And here we intend also to factor in the incorporation of competences in all the training that goes on in higher education institutions. The fourth is finalization of the development of the research and innovation regulatory framework for higher education. This one is already under development. Fifth, Nche will continue working with the National Planning Authority to actualize the establishment of the National PhD program under the Human Resource Training Program. Sixth is infrastructure development. We plan to construct the Nche headquarter block to provide for a number of facilities like e-learning labs, a research hub, a data center, a state-of-the-art conference facility, as well as of office space. 7 Nche will work with the Ministry of Education and Sports towards amendment of the Act. 8, we are in the process of developing guidelines for acceptable and responsible access and use of digital materials in higher education, and this is intended to protect users, especially students, from potential negative effects of the internet within the learning environment. We conceived, or rather we started on this activity following the guidance by the Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, when she launched the celebrations on the 9th. And Mama, we are responding to this, and these guidelines we expect should be out in a few months. I would like to, on behalf of Council, to record appreciation. I would like to appreciate government for the support to Nche, without which it would not have been able to execute its mandate. And in a special way, we thank Your Excellency for the support and the guidance in the last 20 years. The First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports has continued to support us, to guide us, and she has been particularly very supportive in securing increased funding, for which we are grateful. We have also received various forms of support from the ministry as a whole, from the family of the Ministry of Education and Sports, from ministers of state, from the permanent secretary, and officers, senior officers and other officers in the ministry, and we are very grateful for this. We have received support from the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. They continue to support Nche in providing funds. We appreciate the Attorney General for consistently and continuously supporting us in matters that relate to courts, in matters where we have to gazette the institutions. We normally have to seek guidance before we take action, or when there is chartering of institutions. I wish to sincerely thank the chairperson, Professor Erika Tonguka, and the vice chairperson, Professor Kwesiga, and members of the council for the guidance given to management in the execution of their duties. We thank you very much. Permit me to acknowledge with appreciation the commitment of colleagues in management and the staff, collectively referred to or called the Nche family. That commitment has enabled Nche to attain the achievements I have highlighted and the various contributions towards transforming higher education. Permit me first of all to request members of management led by the Deputy Executive Director, Dr. Kagume, to stand up for recognition. And all staff, all other members of the Nche family, please stand up for recognition. Appreciation is also due to our development partners over time for their contributions to Nche's achievements. I would like in particular to thank the following: the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, Enabel, the International Labour Organization, Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, and SEED Global Health. We thank you very much. I thank the institutions, the higher education institutions, and more particularly the former and current vice chancellors and principals and their teams for the many contributions towards the growth of higher education in the country. And I would like to request former vice chancellors, former principals, current vice chancellors, current principals, please stand up for recognition, wherever you are. We are grateful to the media fraternity for providing necessary publicity and enhancing the visibility of Nche. They are already standing, so please recognize them. The organizing committee, headed by the Deputy Executive Director, Reverend Canon Dr. Alex Kagume, has worked hard to ensure success of these functions. I thank the committee for a job well done. And lastly, I thank all of you, our esteemed invited guests, who have come from all walks of life to attend this function. In conclusion, Your Excellency, I wish on behalf of the Nche family to assure you that we are committed to contributing towards the achievement of the Uganda Vision 2040, accelerating Uganda's socio-economic transformation, as well as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much for your attention. It's now my pleasure to invite our Chairperson of Council, Professor Eli Katumbuka, to make his remarks. Professor Katumbuka.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Ministers who are present, Honorable Members of Parliament, the former ministers present, the heads of government departments and agencies, Vice Chancellors and Principals of higher education institutions, the senior staff of the Ministry of Education and Sports. I'm sorry I skipped the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, staff of the National Council for Higher Education, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this historic occasion when we are celebrating 20 years of service as National Council for Higher Education. I want to thank you for sparing time to come and grace this occasion. In the same spirit, I want to thank the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, for coming to be part of this historic event. Your Excellency, allow me now to recognize the current council members with whom we perform our mandated functions as per the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act. The Vice Chairperson of the Council is Professor Joy Kwesiga, the Vice Chancellor Kabale University, and may I now request all members of Council to stand up for recognition. Members of Council, please. Thank you. Your Excellency, that's the formidable team that pretends over matters of higher education regulation in this country. Allow me also to recognize the past two councils. The first council was chaired by Professor Frederick Kayanja, who is amongst us, and the second council was chaired by Professor Pen Moginyeko. We recognize their tireless efforts at the initial and development stages of the National Council for Higher Education. I wish to thank the Executive Director, Professor Mero Kokol, and the whole management team at the National Council for Higher Education for a job well done over the years. They have shown that they are a formidable team and they work well with the Council. Your Excellency, as Council, we are very grateful to government through the Ministry of Education and Sports for the continued financial support and guidance to Council and management of Nche. I also want to thank the NRM government under your wise leadership, Your Excellency, that developed policies to allow many players to come into provision of higher education services. This has seen a marked increase in both public and private tertiary institutions and universities, as the Executive Director has elaborated. Because of this marked expansion, we believe that new modalities of regulating these institutions need to come in place for efficient and effective regulation. The Executive Director has enumerated many achievements and future plans, and I do not want to repeat them. But allow me to thank you, Your Excellency, for your consistent message for us to focus on promotion of science and technology in higher education institutions. The Higher Education Science and Technology Project, which was running from 2015 to 2020, laid a solid foundation by renovating many workshops and laboratories and providing state-of-the-art scientific equipment to all public universities. However, these institutions face human resource gaps that limit the utilization of the acquired equipment. In addition, higher education institutions are finding it difficult to recruit and retain senior personnel at senior lecturer and professorial levels to teach science, engineering, and architecture programs, because the private sector pays them much better. Your Excellency, many faculties of engineering and architecture are greatly understaffed because we cannot retain these people in universities. My appeal to you, Your Excellency, is to consider an affirmative action to recruit and retain these cadres of staff, in addition to recruiting technicians to manage science and engineering workshops and laboratories in higher education institutions. Your Excellency, when we have equipment without technicians, that equipment will not be used, but the worst thing that can happen, it will start disappearing one by one. I wish to pay tribute to the private institutions that teach health-related programs like medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, and those other institutions that teach engineering and architecture programs for their heavy investment, for we are well aware that teaching these programs is very expensive. Your Excellency, the National Council for Higher Education was established under the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as amended in 2003 and 2006. a number of changes have taken place in the education landscape, with many emerging issues within the higher education subsector. However, I regret to inform you that the Act as it stands today does not address these changes, and it therefore needs to be amended to match the current trends of higher education in the country, and also incorporate a number of emerging issues. Proposals to this effect have been submitted to the Minister of Education and Sports, and we await a response. The Executive Director has mentioned that National Council for Higher Education has grown in the staffing numbers. However, given the wide mandate of the Council, the staffing of 56 as of today, out of approved 125 staff, puts our staff levels at 44.4%, which is below the required standards. The main challenges here are the wage bill restrictions with the ceilings, which do not allow any recruitment. Your Excellency, we shall appeal to you for some intervention to address this challenge. Your Excellency, as I conclude, I want to thank you personally for appointing me to chair the National Council for Higher Education. And as you have heard, numerous achievements have been registered and a lot of planned activities are underway. We are committed to continue serving the National Council for Higher Education and this country to achieve more. Lastly, to all our invited guests, I want to thank you for listening to me, and may God bless each one of you as we celebrate 20 years of National Council for Higher Education. I thank you.
Your Excellency, I think Professor Mero Kwakol and Professor Erwacha deserve a bigger crowd. And I can assure you, Excellency, where you have Professor Katunguka with his council and Professor Mero Kwakol, I can assure you, Honorable Minister of Education and our First Lady, she has the best team. You are assured, your vision, your ideas, your philosophy is well understood. We want to thank you for giving us such a wonderful people. We don't take them for granted. Your Excellency, at this moment, there are a number of people who would humbly request that you recognize, but we know there are quite many, because 20 years are quite many, that we shall also humbly request that after you recognize the first group, the First Lady and Minister of Education also, we humbly request her to recognize some other group. Then we shall also request humbly Honorable Peter Ogwang, who is also here with us, Minister of State, also to recognize another group, if Your Excellency allow. And in a representative capacity, the first group, we shall request Professor, the first chairperson of council, to represent it, and the rest, when we read, you will be able to stand here for His Excellencies to note you, and only one person per group will be able to, with the guidance of protocol, to be recognized on our behalf. But all our praise and recognition, Your Excellency, are all here, if you wish. Yeah. You know, when you're master of ceremony, you can make some serious issues now. Can I, Your Excellency, allow that we recognize Professor Ian Bantubanu Kayanja as the former and founding chairperson of National Council 2003-2012. He offered strategic direction, and you cannot talk of higher education without Professor Kayanja. Professor. We further commend, I think we shall request that he come this side and yes. He represents us and he'll be followed quickly by Professor Nche 20Th as the second chairperson, the former Vice Chancellor of Guru University. Professor Erika Tunguka Rwachaya as the third chairperson and for supporting National Council in the current term. In the group, we have Professor ABK Kasozi, represented by Susan. The rest of the members, protocol need to come here. Onwe Kayanja is going. As a pioneer ED, as a person who started the National Council. The next person is Professor Opuda Asibo John, as the second executive director, was very instrumental in mobilizing funds for construction of the National Council Secretariat. Professor Mary J.N. Okwakor, the wonderful lady, the third executive director to present. She has lobbied for the vote, increased funding, rebranding, increased staff. We shall also recognize Elizabeth Gabona. At the time of National Council, she was an assistant commission at the Ministry of Education. She was responsible as a council member. Among those to recognize, in that group, which have been recognized, Ambassador Yeko Wantoni Achato served as a commission and also the commission. Yes, yes. In that group, there is Fene Birunji, who works for this. Yes, we are reading. Yes. In that group, we have Mr. Fene Birunji, who worked as executive director, assistant executive director. No, Mama, it's had to come. Not yet, still Mzee. Mama hasn't started. Then we have Professor FX Robanga. He was the permanent secretary, Minister of Education, and he was instrumental in allocating land to the National Council. In that same group, we have Dr. Alex Kagume, Third Deputy Executive Director. We have Professor Moses Gorora as the second Executive Director and worked at the University Council. Dr. Pamela Tibishira Kalyejira she's now the chairperson of the Rural Reform Commission. Professor Pius Kokswera Achang served council for 11 years, is now the Vice Chancellor of Mountains of the Moon. And Dr. Nora Mulira, Director for Research. Yes, getting up. Becca. Thank you, thank you. Now, the next group that will be recognized by Minister of State, and I'm going to Minister of State. We are going to recognize institutions first that have made a contribution, and they will be represented by Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, and that includes Makerere University for higher education, transformation as a special recognition. Yes. Now, the team will be led by Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, Professor Mushenjezi of Uganda Christian University as the first chartered university, Your Excellency. The first private university in Uganda to be represented by Reverend Canon Professor Olivia Nasaka Banja and HRA Professor Michael Kawoya and Makerere Business Institute. Okay. Now, I request that you move, but you wait, and the minister will recognize. So to recognize them once. Wow. Let protocol guide us, and you remain there, and yes, so that the minister is able to award. Because the break for the Nawangwe is already prepared. Okay, let me read them again. Yes. Yes, I'm going to read. Can I, when we read a group stands up, only one person goes to the head of state for recognition. It's not all of us that are going for the head of state recognition. We only read the names, and only one person represents. I think that's why we got some issues. Now, there are people I read and who have not gone, and who are going to be recognized by the Honorable Minister. And the pregs are there, the team. I have the people I need to read again. And Your Excellency, I can request the Minister of State to remain there, or His Excellency has accepted to come near them. We thank you, Your Excellency. We thank you. Wow, we thank you. Your Excellency, we can't take that generosity for granted. Thank you. Now, I request Your Excellency, with the guidance of protocol, that you can rest, then the minister remains, and I request the other team that I had led by Professor Achang, former Permanent Secretary FX Rubanga, Ambassador Chato Mr. Birungi, Fene, and I request Mary to come and Maria to come and take over this other group. Dr. Pamela, Dr. Nora Murira, Reverend Canon Alex Kagume, Stella Rere, Abdul Karim, and you read for me the two.
Yes, Your Excellency, there is a group that is going to be recognized by the Honorable Minister Ogwang. These are long-term serving officers of the National Council and include Mr. Arthur Babumuguzi, who has been the MC for the day, Mr. Soma Emmanuel, Dr. Martin Elemaut Oskei, Madam Harriet Kavuka, Mr. John Mike Wanyama, Mr. George Ebine, Mr. Patrick Wonyal, and Mr. Ronald Kasolo. Please come up for recognition by the Honorable Minister. Okay. Thank you for serving the National Council, and we look forward to your continued service. Please move very fast. Those whose names I've read, please move very fast.
Your Excellency, we want to thank you. And among the people appreciated here, I'm among the people who have worked here for 20 years at the National Council in charge of finances. And National Council, as Mama can say, have been one of the institutions we are proud of under our leadership, and I've been a head of finance, Your Excellency. And I come from Buweju. At this moment, I want to request current performers to give us a 5-minute presentation, a 3-minute presentation as a preface. Yeah, thank you, current performers. Your Excellency, whenever we have 20 years celebration, which happen once, this is the team that performs for us. Your Excellency, I want to take this singular honor and opportunity on behalf of the National Council on the 20 years anniversary celebration to invite the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports. And Your Excellency, she's your host today in higher education to make her remarks. Mama.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, honorable ministers present here, honorable members of parliament, if there are any here, heads of diplomatic missions, former national leaders, distinguished guests, the chairperson of the National Council for Higher Education, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Now, as we gather here today, we thank God for the 20 years that the National Council for Higher Education has been in existence as an agency of the Ministry of Education and Sports. Therefore, I join the many people that are rejoicing with National Council for Higher Education upon this milestone. Congratulations to you. However, we must ask ourselves now what we see as this establishment marks 20 years of its life. What has it done to make Uganda's education better and more transformative for our society? That is the question that would give our celebration the strength and the worthy feeling. Let me first applaud each one of the men and women who came before me as leaders of this sector under the NRM government. I want to remind you of those. They are not, unfortunately, not here today to be recognized as we did with those that led Nche, but I just want to remind you of them by name, who creatively shaped the role of regulation of higher education in this country one after another. Those leaders are the late Honorable Joash Mayanja Nkanji, Honorable Amanya Mshega, the late Professor Apollo Nsibambi, Professor Kidu Makubuya, Honorable Geraldine Bitamazire, my immediate predecessor, Her Excellency the Vice President Jessica Lupo, their ministers of state and technical teams. All these people who have come before the current generation of leaders in this sector have played a key role in birthing and nurturing this youthful institution called the National Council for Higher Education. Therefore, in a way, institutions do behave like living organisms. Human beings are born, they are then nurtured to survive the foundational years of life and childhood. They become adolescents and youth full of zeal. Ultimately, the desire is that they grow into responsible adults that fulfill the purpose for which God let them be here on earth. So these human-made institutions also take a similar path. Firstly, institutions are also born by being established. For the case of Nche, it was born out of the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as you heard Professor Okwakol inform us. Secondly, God created human beings and gave them the delegated responsibility of being stewards of his creation here on earth. Well, similarly, Nche was established to be a steward of the higher education subsector on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports. So Nche has the freedom to do what it does, but it is still accountable to the ministry that established it. Therefore, when we launched the 20 years anniversary celebrations for Nche in March this year, we were also, in a way, looking at ourselves as a government to reflect on the achievements attained through the work of National Council for Higher Education. Thirdly, just like human beings attain physical and mental growth, so do institutions. Nche started off with 4 employees 20 years ago, as again you heard from Professor Okwakol, and now has more than 50 staff to help the agency carry out its mandate. And I know that they are trying to find the funding that would enable them to employ more personnel. Fourthly, as human beings attain physical and mental maturity, responsibilities also increase. As you have already heard, there were 4 public and 7 private universities, plus 56 other tertiary institutions that the young Nche was responsible for at the time of establishment. But right now, that number has grown to 265, as you have heard again from Professor Kwakol's speech. So as we celebrate these 20 years of National Council for Higher Education's existence, we are also taking stock of the leaps that the higher education subsector has done. The quantitative increase from 67 higher education institutions 20 years ago to 265 right now is a testament that the government has created an environment that fosters growth. This shows that Nche's work has increased fourfold to monitor and authorize that many higher education institutions to operate. Your Excellency, as National Council for Higher Education stands at the gate setting off for the next 20 years, it needs to position itself as a catalyst for the transformation of the higher education system in Uganda to make our country a higher education hub for the East African region, and that is possible. However, this possibility, we must remind ourselves, should not just mean the multiplication of universities in quantity alone. The essence of this multiplication should be evident in the quality and excellence of our students' qualifications and competitiveness in the region. The government has endeavored to answer the question of access to higher education by establishing more public universities. The liberalization of the education sector has also widened opportunities by allowing the private sector to further increase access to higher education through establishing institutions of higher learning. The challenge that Nche should address now is the quality of higher education being offered in these institutions, especially the science and technology programs. Therefore, Nche must ensure that the programs and courses offered in both public and private higher education institutions do not vary in quality. Because sometimes we tend to give excuses if the quality of some education institutions are not good. We start to give excuses of the fact that that is a private university. But that should not make any difference in our universities, whether public or private. All must be excellent programs and qualifications. That is when the education hub will truly be meaningful and significant. The higher education system should become relevant to the society it is operating in by rightly diagnosing the problems in society and their root causes before prescribing remedies and interventions. This is the only way higher education becomes a driver of socio-economic change. In addition, the higher education system should be seen to have a social purpose and not mere academic intent. The National Council for Higher Education should guide our higher education institutions in periodically measuring the relevance they are having in their community, where they are situated. Can students and academic faculty engage more in solving common problems with the institutions surrounding the community? Lastly, our higher education system must be aggressive and ambitious enough in integrating ICTs in the pedagogical approaches to learning. This will impact the much required skills and abilities in students as they go out into the world of work. When higher education becomes fully integrated with ICTs in pedagogical approaches, the effects will naturally trickle down into the other subsectors of the education system. On behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports, I'd like now to congratulate the chairperson and members of the National Council for Higher Education, the management and staff on this milestone of 20 years of regulating higher education in Uganda. Your Excellency, as a ministry, we are committed to continuous improvement of the policy and legal regime that enables effective regulation of the higher education subsector. The policy that is being developed shall place our higher education system on the path of alignment and relevance to our society and the demands in the 21st century world of work. I want to thank you for listening to me, and God bless you. I now invite our President to address this audience. Thank you.
Okay, sit down, please. Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, the other ministers, the chairperson of the council, executive director, members of the council, and the other distinguished invited persons who are here today. First of all, I congratulate the council on their 20th anniversary. Thank you, congratulations. And I want to thank the ministers and the managers, the leaders of the council, who have shepherded it all this time. We salute them. The council for higher education, which will be building on what the lower education has imparted in the young people, in my view, should be clear about its historical role. Modern education is, in my view, about, especially the higher one, is about two things. Number one, understanding nature and understanding the natural laws of nature. This is what you call science. But actually, these are natural laws. Gravity, light, sound, electrons, bonding of molecules to form compounds. This is nature. So you should be very clear, especially because sometimes the mystification of knowledge can confuse oneself, but also even people who are learning from you. But if you are clear, like on the side of science, that really we are basically talking about understanding nature and its natural laws and how they can help man in solving one or the other problem, or even creating problems for society. Because some people use natural laws to create problems for society. The societies which understood gunpowder before we did created a lot of problems for us. For them, they understood the simple natural characteristic of how solids or liquids, some solids or liquids or powders in a confined space, when they are converted to gas, they create pressure which expels what we call a projectile. And that's how you kill people. Because gas has got the natural characteristic of expansion. Gases expand. In a confined space, therefore they create that pressure which expels the bullet. Those who understood this before us were able to come and cause so much trouble here in the world. When you hear slave trade, all that was because of the simple problem, colonialism, because we lacked the ability to understand that science quickly. Nuclear energy, the same problem. So therefore, you, the managers of education in general, and especially the higher ones, the higher management, which is your job, should be clear about that point. Because like when I was talking with my young people there, say ICT. I said, what is ICT? ICT. This other one, artificial intelligence. What is it exactly? Is it not electrons? How they move around and you make them do work, and how you manipulate them? Yes, but we import them. You import. If you are importing, then you are not yet free. You must learn, you must go deeper and excite the electrons yourselves independently. So, because that's what we did when we went to the bush. We didn't just copy what these people were doing. We did our own things. And that's how we were able to become formidable, because nobody could control us. So therefore, number one, especially for higher education, is, in my view, you can later on, when we have time, you can guide me, say, no, you are mistaken here, you can help me. But from what I've been watching, understanding nature and its laws and using them to solve problems is one very important part of education. The lower education, of course, includes acquiring the basics, reading, writing, counting, and so on. But also you get the introduction to the sciences, even in the lower schools. Then the second part is understanding society and evolution of man. That is now for the social scientists. How this man has been evolving in society as a hunter, gatherer, then learning how to domesticate some crops, some wild seeds. Instead of following them in the bush, you bring them home and you tame them, you plant them deliberately. Then my tribe, many years ago, they learned how to domesticate animals. Actually, they don't call them animals. If you say a cow is an animal, he will fight you. Because a cow is a cow. Nche. It can't be a nyamweshwa. You can see how advanced they are. Even in Uganda, I'm sure you cannot say ensoro into ensoro. You can see how the Europeans are still backward. They call a cow an animal. I find it very offended when they say animals. Animals, these are not animals, these are cows. Yeah? So you can see how these societies were evolving, even language evolving. invention of iron ore, the use of iron tools, and so on. So I think if you get clear, because like for instance, we still have hunter-gatherers here in Africa. The Batwa, the Pygmies in the forest, they have not yet learned the science of domesticating crops or domesticating animals. They think it is a waste of time. They think it is better to remain in the forest, gathering honey and catching some wild animals. And then the society, how it evolved. Because like here, you still have, when you hear people talking of landlords, Wetaka, Nowechibanja, you are still talking of a feudal arrangement. We have not gone to the stage of capitalism. Still 600 years behind. So therefore, my suggestion is that when we are managing education, we should not mystify it. Go to the basics and make sure that our students really understand the basics. And the whole, I would call it like enlightenment. Because part of the problem of Africa was remaining in superstition when other parts of the world had moved a bit in the area of natural science. They had understood natural science better than us when we were still in the issue of, in the area of superstition. That man, I think it's called Louis Pasteur, the one who saw the first microbe, I think, under the microscope. When did he do that? Can somebody help me? One of the scientists, come and help me, please. On the microphone there. Louis Pasteur, the Frenchman. I get this information from my computer from long ago. Louis Pasteur, if you don't know, check on your internet, they will tell you. Who would help us about Louis Pasteur? We don't have doctors here. Oh, they are disturbing Okuda is the one going to. What are all these young boys doing? Young girls. There's a young girl there. Okuda, you sit down. Let them not disturb you. Let the young children do it. There's a girl who stood there. Run. This one here. Sit, Professor Okuda. Let these children do it. You sit down.
Yeah, Louis Pasteur pioneered the study of molecules.
Of?
Molecules.
Molecules.
Yeah. And discovered that microorganisms cause fermentation and disease.
Microorganisms.
Yes.
Which year was it?
It was in 1962.
No.
Sorry. 1862.
1862.
Yes.
Okay. Sit down. What's your name?
Zawede Patricia.
Goreti?
Zawede Patricia from Cavendish University, Uganda.
Zawede.
Patricia.
Ka?
Patricia.
Patricia.
Yes.
Zawede.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Zawede. Go to Yambe Mnange. Okay, sit down. Now, you can hear Louis Pasteur, 1862. This is more than 150 years now. Was able to see that there are organisms that we are not able to see with our eyes. 150 years ago. Now, some about 15 years ago, I went back to the Ruero Triangle, my area of operation. And I was walking. I decided to pass in the village of Nakaziwa. We had our chairman there. He was called Konia. He was a very enlightened man in the village. The most, I would say, educated in the village. Maybe he went up to P6 or something like that. So I found him there, seated with a swollen leg. Hey, Konia, Obadichi. Ntibandoze. Okuloze? Ntibantege talo. That some, who can tell us about a talo? A talo wananga. Sagara wakadewa no kuwata. I wanted the young ones. A talo, what is a talo? Come and tell us. Come on the microphone.
Your Excellency, I'm Mike Katongole, a master's student of bioinformatics.
Katongole, student of?
Makerere, I'm doing masters in bioinformatics.
Masters in what?
Bioinformatics.
Informatics.
Yes.
Okay.
My auntie died of a talo, I was told.
Your father died?
My auntie.
Your auntie?
In 1999.
1999, yes.
Yes. So in my second year, in microbiology class in MUST, I found out that a talo was an infection of a bacteria called Clostridium perfringens. It resides in the soils, in the villages, below areas where oxygen can reach. So our traditional farmers, when they are farming without gumboots, they dig soil onto their feet, which has previously cut with wounds. So this bacteria enters their legs, and it leads to swelling. Unfortunately, Clostridium perfringens toxins, so far on the market, they have not yet got antibacterials for them because they are rare infections in Europe, so no one is willing to invest in that research. We call them orphan diseases. So you can't find a talo in Kampala.
But it can be killed by antibiotics.
Previous antibiotics can kill them, but unfortunately, previously, people reach hospitals when it is too late, when they have got systemic infection. So they will die, and they say when you have a talo and you are injected with a penicillin, you die. So they would prefer local herbs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency.
Now, Katongere is a bio something.
Informatician.
Let's get a doctor to help us, because I was told Because when I was walking and they told me, the Konya told me that Bambuloze Etalo, I had my doctor who were working with me. I said, what's this? They told me that this is a simple bacterial infection, that they call it cellulitis. That the disease is called cellulitis. So which doctor can tell us now? A young doctor, don't disturb people like Okuda, old men. Katuumbuleko abakadde.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm Dr. Asman Lukwago. I'm a physician.
Dr. who?
Lukwago Asman.
Lukwago.
Yes.
Very good.
Cellulitis means inflammation of the tissue. But the common consequence of that infection of the bacteria is to cause that inflammation. That's why it is called cellulitis. So what the colleague had described was
is the cause.
Exactly, the bacteria, how it enters into the body, but the consequence on that part of the body that is affected is inflammation, intense inflammation, and that's what we call cellulitis.
And what is the cure? Because I treated Lukwago.
Yes.
I treated Konya.
Yes. So the cure, because many bacteria actually cause cellulitis. It's not only the other bacteria which is saying, even other bacteria that are available. In fact, African traditionally know the sources of those bacteria, and they tend to place them strategically where someone can be injured and they enter his body. So they call it witchcraft, but actually when it is a biological process. So immediately you step on them, they can like mix blood, get some rotting animals, and they mix them. So the other aspect of like bewitching is not really underrated.
They can be deliberately brought nearby.
Exactly, it is like a biological weapon. You prepare a concoction so that when someone steps on it, and these are bacteria which rapidly spread. They are kept into blood, and we call it culturing them. When you culture, you put bacteria into a medium so that they multiply rapidly. So someone stepping on them and is injured at the same time makes those bacteria access the body, and this results into a quick infection and inflammation, swelling, and then we call it cellulitis. But the toxins which are liberated, if the patient doesn't rush to the hospital first, may paralyze other organs like the heart, the brain. Of course, when the patients are supported with the fluids, blood, they usually survive. But the antibiotics usually work on such a bacteria, Your Excellency.
But the bacteria can kill it if you do it on time.
The antibiotic?
The antibiotics?
Yeah, the antibiotics kill them.
Yes.
And if combined with supportive treatment, even Clostridium, the patient will survive. You know, the human body depends on supporting. If the cells are dying, or if the blood is like becoming diluted and your pressure is falling, then we give you more fluids. We can give you blood, as we also give you antibiotics to kill the new bacteria that come up. And patients usually survive.
So it is curable?
Yeah, it's curable. It is perfectly curable, and we have had such challenges when we treat patients. Others, especially like diabetic, when they come with their taro, you have to bargain and even sign and say, if he dies, I will take responsibility. Because the relatives will always refuse the antibiotics. So that is an attitude which has grown a long time. And I think through health education, some of them accept.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Lukwago.
You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Now, so you can see, 1862, Louis Pasteur discovered that there were organisms that we cannot see with our eyes, which are around us. Some are good, like the ones that were causing fermentation, but some are bad. But here, where I was, chairman of the National Resistance Movement, this must have been like 2000 there, like 20 years ago, calling on my chairman, my village chairman, who is suffering from invasion by some microbes, and he doesn't know that there is a medical answer to that. And his leg was up, ready to, I don't know what he was planning to do, Ntibandoze. But, and then when I called my doctor, immediately the person is cured. So you can see that you, the education experts, now on the side of social science, you must do some work for people to stop believing in witchcraft, in superstition, and believing more in natural science. That there are causes, and the natural science is everywhere. Like when you put the bananas in the ground to ripen, it is those bacteria which ripen those bananas, amavide. But I have actually not asked our people what they think ripens. They think it is a bugumu. To a bugumu. But then why does the ripe banana ripen even when it is on the tree? So that disconnection among African people, it's not only African people, even the others. For instance, in the Middle Ages, in Europe, people were believing in the same superstitions. But for them, they have moved. From the time of Louis Pasteur, they started moving away. But your people here are stuck in that non-science way of life. Non-science way of life. And really, I don't know how you assess that, because I find this a big problem. To have a society that is still superstition oriented. How, on the side of social science, how are you going to handle that? Because this is part of, I think in other places they called it enlightenment. How can you build an enlightened society? Society that believes in science. In God, because also there's another danger. There are others who said with science there's no God. No. Because here I'm talking about you understanding the natural laws. But who created those natural laws? This is where I did not agree with some people in the universities. They were saying, with science, there's no God. Gravity, you talk of gravity, but who created it? Who created all these, the earth, that the earth is the one pulling me down, but who created the earth? But that's another issue. That one our battle between the atheists and the scientists and the ones who believe in God, that one we can handle. But the first problem we have is having a society which is disconnected with natural science and is stuck in superstition. You can think about, I don't know whether you have ever thought about it, If you have not, you think about it. Because it's all right to have a few of us who are here, who know. But how about those millions in the village who still believe in superstition? And because of that, they make a lot of, they suffer a lot of losses. So therefore, in my view, the challenge of education in a society like this one are those two. On the side of science, it is understanding that science is essential about nature and its laws, and how they can be used positively or negatively. Because, for instance, now, when we are talking about biotechnology can be used to do good things, but it can also be used to what some of them are thinking about is how to discover a disease, a germ which can kill only Africans because of their genetic makeup and not other people. Have a biogenetic weapon. And that's what I've been telling my people. Please, we need to adopt the biotechnology law so that we study it in order to use it, but also to defend ourselves against the misuse. It's not good to keep away from biotechnology because other people will use it both positively and negatively, and we shall not be there to defend ourselves. So therefore, I'm very happy to be here, and I have made what I've been observing. Now, regarding the challenges which Professor Kokor pointed out, the speech was clear, long, and detailed. The achievements were 15 or 16. They were 15. Then there were a few problems. We are going to study them, and we shall respond. On the issue of salary, for scientists, our scientists, awonze musindika alotamye. You are pushing somebody who is quoting. Because I support that line. I have been having a war with some of my people, and this war started a little bit in Soroti Flying School. There we have got a government flying academy where pilots are trained, pilots and aircraft engineers. Now, because we still didn't have enough money in the whole government to pay all government workers well, then actually Professor Nsibambi, when he was Minister of Public Service, brought the idea of democratic suffering, that we should all suffer. If the money is not enough, all of us should get small. But the idea of Professor Nsibambi of democratic suffering was different from our Bayekera experience with the guerrillas. Because in the bush we had no food, very little food, and we would be democratically starving, all of us. But we said, although we are, and you know, when you have not eaten enough, you are always dozing. I think the body is trying to conserve the few calories by sending you to sleep so that you don't squander the little calories you have. Now, when you are hungry, you tend to doze. So we said, if we all doze, the enemy will come and kill all of us. So although we don't have enough food, let's give the soldiers on duty who are guarding the camp more food so that for them they are at least awake. Even if we are asleep, if the enemy comes, they will engage him and then we shall wake up. So we're able to see the one on sentry duty, what they call sentry duty, the ones guarding, should get more food than the rest of us. And this is my logic when I say the scientists should get more pay for now, because otherwise we shall all be killed. That was my logic. So therefore, if these are scientists, academicians, now because we need them urgently now. If we don't quote Shakespeare, because me, I am a person of literature, but if I don't quote Shakespeare, people will not die. But if somebody gets cellulitis and is not treated, he will die. So now, although I'm very clever, I can remember what Shakespeare said and how he said it, and he was looking this way. What we need now is the one who can treat cellulitis immediately now. Then in the future, we shall see how to handle this clever man of literature when we are able. So that's the logic why we say, please, if the money is small, let's start with these scientists. Because we need them to keep the roads open, civil engineers, the buildings, architects, the medicals, to keep us alive. So therefore, in that line, I would insist that the government science educators. No, but let me first finish the Soroti issue. Because of the other logic of Professor Sibambi of democratic suffering, Soroti Flying School is under Ministry of Works. So there is the permanent secretary, the undersecretary in the ministry, there is the principal assistant secretary. These are all big people there. Then you come to the head of the school, he's there. And then you come to the pilot instructors and engineers, aircraft engineers. Now, they were paying them a smaller salary because they had to earn lower than the permanent secretary, to be lower than the principal secretary, to be lower than the undersecretary. But the pilots, the one who was qualified on a commercial jet engine, in the market is earning 25 million shillings. If he has qualified on a jet engine. So I bought 6 aircrafts for training. The school was there. The artificial training, the simulator was there. The airport is tarmacked, but all the teachers went away. they went to earn money from the airlines, and they refused to train my pilots. So I told my people, now, what are you doing here now? Why don't you pay these pilot instructors what they are paid in the market so that they keep your school open? Now the school is going to close. What sort of wisdom is this? So eventually they saw my point, and they started paying the pilots higher than the principal secretary. Principal secretary can go and we shall get another one. But this pilot instructor, we don't have another one. What do we do now? Do we close the school or what? You people banange munyambe okutegera ekigambo ekyo. It's not that we are against the big people. Even now, me as president, I get a small salary. I refused to go for high salary. I refused. Chumugenda kunyingiza mu nsobi. They were paying me 3.6 million. Then 20% I gave to NRM. So I think Mama, on the account, they put there 2.7 million. Then my people came and said, but President, in Tanzania and Kenya, I said, this is Uganda. Not Kenya, not Tanzania, not UK, not Pakistan, not Ndwawano. My people are still getting small salaries. There's no way I can get a big salary and then I say you remain with small. Let's pay these scientists well. Authority has nothing to do with pay. Even if I'm getting a lower salary than all of you here, you challenge me and then you will see what's what authority. Why do you mix authority with pay? Banyankore normally don't eat before the children have eaten. When they bring food, the old man will not eat. Have the children eaten? That's when he will eat. Even in Baganda, I saw them in Mikoro. Nanyinimu doesn't eat when the guests are eating. He just sits there, supervises. So therefore, Professor Katunguka, on the issue of if they are scientists, they must be paid for the government universities. They must be paid what they will be paid in the private sector, our scientists. In the government universities. I even heard that they don't get, because there's one of my people whom I talked to, and she told me that they don't get retired. There's some issue about retirement, something. What is the story in the universities about retirement? Huh? Professor Katunguka, you tell me. Do you have any problem with the retirement packages for our teachers? Is it different for government universities?
Your Excellency, the situation appears to be different from one university to another. There are some universities which contribute to NSSF, and others have their own retirement, in-house retirement packages.
Oh, you don't have a harmonized?
No, there is no harmonized retirement package for public universities. I think that was the matter of contention.
Is that a good thing or a bad one?
Your Excellency, I think it's a good thing.
Oh.
Because when they retire, then they have something to keep them going.
Is it good to have a non-harmonized?
No, I think a non-harmonized one would be treated differently from one institution to another. There are some institutions that have their own internal arrangements.
No, so Mbaleke, you have no problem.
Your Excellency, I think this matter was discussed in Public Universities Forum, and we are going to discuss it again and see whether we can come up with a plan, whether government can pay retirement packages for all retirees from government institutions, including universities.
Because I had one of my people who was really suffering, and when I asked her what was the problem, he said, you know, we in the university, because she was teaching in the university also, we in the universities, when we retire, what, so really, we are not the same like the public servants, and I was not happy. So, what will you do?
Your Excellency,
Chairperson, you are the chairperson, you advise me, because you said you are there to advise me. That's what Okokoro said. In the 15 points of Okokoro, one of them was to advise me. So I am now here to be advised.
Your Excellency, to be honest, I have not put my mind to this particular problem.
You go and discuss it and come and advise me.
I'll do that, Your Excellency.
Through the minister.
Thank you.
So with these few words, I congratulate you. Katonda wabere.
Your Excellency, you deserve a standing rare ovation for this turning up for us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your Excellency, as one of the signs that you have visited the National Council, we have a souvenir magazine, and you are going to sign on it, and I request Honorable Peter Ogwang, PS Amara, Professor Kokor, Professor Katunguka, Professor Joy Kwesiga, Dr. Nora Mreira, Dr. Kagume, and Dr. Vincent Sembati, and Tito Kayugwa, to go and witness the chief guest signing and on the diamond.
That is our souvenir magazine, and all of you have got copies. Your Excellency, we are grateful for the words of wisdom and the guidance that we need to be clear as higher education stakeholders. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We shall always remember the 20 years of the National Council for Higher Education. Our dear Minister and the First Lady, Mama Janet, we thank you very much. We shall have a camera moment after the signing. The management team of the National Council, please join in. After which we shall do the anthems.
very much, Your Excellency. And our dear Minister. We are now going to have the anthems in reverse order. I request all of you to stand up. And Prison's Band is going to lead. Thank you. Prison's Band, thank you very much. Your Excellency, thank you very much for being with us as we celebrate the 20 years. Our Minister, the First Lady, thank you. We thank you so much. Our guests' lunch is going to be served, and please remain seated. I request all the ushers to go to the 2 tents and usher our guests to the serving points. Mary Innocent and your team. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, our guests. Want to thank you. Want to apologize where things have not worked out the way you wanted. Next time we shall do better when we are celebrating another 20 years. That one I can assure you shall do better. But I want to congratulate you and thank you. Hosting such an event is not ordinary. Now, let all of us remain seated. Let us all remain seated and ushers be able to take our guests for lunch. The president has offered us lunch. Let us take our guests for lunch. Now, those who have souvenirs, those who have gifts, they are ready. Our staff will be able to give them to you so that you go with them. We thank you, and lunch is served. To avoid lines, we are giving coupons. To avoid lines.